Hola estudiantes, this video is to help you learn how to form and use the present perfect subjunctive. So just to give you an overview of what I'm going to be talking about, the present perfect indicative expresses what a person has done. For example, I have studied or you have read the Hunger Games. The present perfect subjunctive is basically the same meaning. The only difference is that it's set off by a trigger phrase. So comparing the first example with these, it is good that I have studied. I am surprised that you've read the Hunger Games. So it's the same example, but just preceded by a trigger phrase. I'm going to talk about how to form the present perfect subjunctive as well as how to use it in a sentence. So let's start with formation. All perfect tenses use a form of haber. In this case, because we're talking about the present perfect subjunctive, you're going to use the present subjunctive form of haber. So haya, hayas, haya, hayamos, hayan. All perfect tenses always have two elements, the form of haber and then the past participle of whatever verb it is that you're trying to conjugate. So any verb that ends in AR is going to go to ado, and verbs that end in ER, ido. And then, of course, in Spanish, there are always irregulars. So verbs like hacer, hecho, decir, dicho. And ideally by now, you remember those irregulars. So let's take a look at a few examples. Comer would become haya comido in the yo form or the el, ella, usted form, while estudiar would be haya estudiado. And then finally, a verb like hacer in irregular would be haya hecho in the yo or el, ella, usted form. So any verb you're trying to conjugate, you first start with the form of haber, and then that verb you turn into the participle. It's basically how you do it. So let's try and do a little bit of practice. Below here I have some verbs and the subject that I want you to use. I want you to start all of the sentences with es bueno que, and then use the subject and then conjugate the verb in the present perfect subjunctive. So go ahead, take a moment, pause the video, jot down your answers, and when you're ready, resume play and check your work. Okay, let's check our answers. So the first sentence, es bueno que tú hayas corrido. Es bueno que nosotros hayamos estudiado. Es bueno que Pablo haya bebido leche. Es bueno que los estudiantes hayan leído. And notice how I've accented the I to separate those vowels since we have two in a row. Y finally, es bueno que yo haya dicho la verdad. And dicho is one of our irregulars from decir. So in all of these, you'll see that I've used the infinitive of whatever verb that we're going to conjugate, taken the form of haber to agree with the subject, and then changed that verb into a past participle. I also used es bueno que in all of these sentences so you can see roughly how they're formed. So the first part of the sentence starts out with a trigger phrase, and that part is always just in the regular old present indicative. That triggers in the second part the subjunctive, in this case the present perfect subjunctive. So if you remember some of the trigger phrases from when we covered the present subjunctive in earlier chapters of the course, the you weirdo mnemonic helps us remember their uses. So in particular, with this tense, you'll often see expressions of unknown entity. So I am looking for someone who has read the novel The Little Chinese Seamstress. Or do you know a tour guide that has visited the Alhambra? Okay, expressions of emotion are often seen with this tense as well. I'm happy that you have come to visit me, or I'm surprised that you haven't seen that movie. Expressions of doubt, disbelief, and denial, similarly. I doubt that he has studied for this quiz. And then finally, any expression of opinion. So expressions like es bueno que, es malo que, es triste que, es interesante que. Any of those expressions can trigger this tense. So let's go ahead and practice. I have a few sentences here for you in English. I want you to pause the video and take a moment and write down how to express them in Spanish using the trigger phrase followed by the present perfect subjunctive of the verb in the sentence. Okay, so let's check our answers. Dudo que hayas leído el libro. So dudo que, I doubt that, y luego hayas leído, you have read the book. Es interesante que él nunca haya visitado. Número 3. Es malo que ella no haya hecho la tarea. Y número 4. ¿Conoces a alguien que haya viajado a México? Y número 5, no es verdad que la actriz haya engordado. So just to clarify, in all of these, the trigger phrase is in the regular present, and then the second part is in the present perfect subjunctive. I hope that this video has been helpful for you. If you have questions, this would be a great time to email your instructor or ask a question in class. And thanks for watching.